Welcome to Module 8 of EDU 350. Module 8 is about family and stakeholder collaboration. So our objectives are all about how we can incorporate families in curriculum and assessment. So it's explain the importance of family and stakeholder collaboration, propose methods for engaging families and stakeholders to support student success, and how do we describe effective strategies for sharing assessment data with families. So just some things to think about as you're going through the resources of this module. What are some challenges families might face when trying to access and interpret student assessment data? And how can schools ensure that family engagement strategies are culturally responsive and inclusive? So, this is essentially what the module is trying to teach you, right? How do we support families in accessing and interpreting student data? And then, how can we ensure that we're being culturally responsive and inclusive? So this is an overview of the module. It's going to be talking about the importance of family engagement, strategies for effective data sharing, culturally responsive family engagement, and a framework for engagement. So we're going to go through each of these in this module, all of these key points. So the first thing is, why is it important to collaborate with families as stakeholders in their child's education? So collaboration among families, educators, and staff is crucial for fostering student success, improving school environments, and ensuring equitable outcomes. And a part of that is also communication. So in order to foster this collaboration or this collaborative environment, you need to have communication. Now, this video in the resources, when you're watching this video, look for evidence of shared commitment, impact on students, reasons for why data should be shared with parents, and tips on identifying action steps and resources. So these are kind of key points to look for in this video, in the course materials. And as you're watching the video, you can also reflect on the specific combination of educational partners, how they share data and work together in order to strengthen and expand the support system to include support at home. So what do the teachers do in order to support student learning, not just in the classroom, but at home? And also, why is it vital to share multiple sources of data, including progress monitoring, behavior, and critical thinking skills? So these teachers do a really good job of sharing, how they explain data to parents and to students' families, and how they use data to help create partnerships with families. And so just, these are some things to reflect on as you're watching the video, these strong partnerships that they're creating. Now, this article, Methods for Sharing Data with Families, is here. And this article, Culturally Responsive Family Engagement, these two articles both align with our module learning outcomes. So this article, sharing data, methods for sharing data with families, or how to share data with families. This one is going to this one has to do with describing effective strategies for sharing assessment data with families. This article, culturally responsive family engagement, has to do with proposing methods for engaging families and stakeholders to support student success. And as you are reading through these articles, here are some questions you can reflect on. How might schools unintentionally create barriers? What is one action you could take as an educator? And how did the articles reinforce or challenge your understanding of family engagement? So these are just some reflection questions you can answer about these articles as you're reading in order to support you with your understanding. Now, this video is really important. This video gives you a framework for family engagement. That's access, understand, action. And this is directly related to the discussion. So in this video, you're going to listen for access, understand, and action. And what do these mean? So the first thing we want to do is access, right? Access is transparency. It's opening the door for communication. So when we access the information, right? It's data transparency. So you want to make sure that you're being very clear about the data that you collected. You also want to have a respectful initiation, right? So that you can have an actual discussion, so that you are not, so families don't feel attacked, right? Because as a parent, or a primary caregiver, it's a very personal experience, just like teaching is also a very personal experience. So, and ultimately, why are you doing this? Because everybody in the situation cares about the student and cares about their success, as they grow. And so, just reminding that you are somebody that cares about the student as well, and you want to work with that family member in order to support that student's success. So, you want to make sure that this access point, that you are clearly opening the door in order to have a positive conversation. Because, as this says here, if you have poor access, you can doom the conversation from the start. And as soon as your conversation is doomed, they're not listening to you, and you're not listening to each other, and you don't have a a collaborative environment anymore. So this access is really important. It creates that collaborative environment. The next part is understanding. So the key goal is you want to make sure that the person is heard and validated before you offer your own opinion. So I have here a picture. It's active listening, right? Active listening, these are examples of active listening. It's reflective feedback, such as paraphrasing. So, for example, saying, so if I understand you correctly, you feel, or it sounds like you're feeling frustrated because, asking clarifying questions respectfully, and then empathy and validation. So, an example that I always give is you have a parent or a family member that explains to you that they are struggling to read with their child because they work full time and they're a single parent, and they have to, and they have to, they have to make dinner every day when they get home, and they just don't feel like they have time to read with their child. And now in school, your data is showing that their child is struggling to read. And so this is something that very commonly happens, in my personal experience. And so what can you do, right? You share this data, your data shows that the child is struggling to read. You listen to what the family has to say. You hear them say, I work so much, I really don't have time to sit down with them and read every day. I'm constantly struggling just to put food on the table. And you say, oh, okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, you feel frustrated, because you know that you need to sit and read every day, or because the expectation is that, families read every day for 15 minutes with their child, but you feel sometimes overwhelmed because you have so much to do. I totally understand. I'm a mom too. It's really difficult to find time to do that, especially if you're working full time and you have all of these other responsibilities. And so you're really paraphrasing them, you're empathizing with them, right? You're saying, I can see why you would feel that way. That makes total sense. And then you can ask a clarifying question, dig deeper. You can say, oh, does your child have a tablet at home? Because a lot of times children nowadays, they do have tablets. So, does your child have a tablet at home? We have this app that the school pays for, with books on it that it reads to them. It's a great app you could use. And, while you're making dinner, your son or daughter can be using this app to read. So you're giving them a solution that works for them while, empathizing with them and really hearing what they have to say. And then finally, action. So that's the action part, right? Where you are then creating a SMART goal with the family. So it's not something that you are creating on your own. You're creating that SMART goal with the family that's supportive for them. It's for you at school and for them at home. So for example, I could say the SMART goal would be the student will use the app for 15 minutes every day to read, while the mom is, or the parent is making dinner. And now I have it, okay, is it, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's realistic, right? It's time bound. So it's specific. So I have this goal with the family, and then, and maybe in a month I check in with them and see how they're doing. I could even have some kind of um, sticker chart that maybe I help the parent create. So just really working together with them in a supportive way so that you can have the child be successful in school and at home. Now, this directly aligns with the discussion for the week. The discussion for the week is all about respectfully sharing data. So you are going to first pick a student, then you are going to record a conference. You're going to record a parent-teacher conference. You could either do a voice note or a video recording. And you're going to pretend like you are the teacher and you're speaking to the child's parent or the child's primary caregiver. And these are all the parameters of what you're going to do. And as you are doing that, you want to structure it so that you are saying what strengths does the student bring to the classroom, what does the data tell us, what suggestions, how will you honor and include the family's perspective. So this kind of gives you an overview of, guiding questions. And here's a specific example of how it could look. Then you're going to respond to your peers. So a strength in how your peer communicated, a suggestion for improvement, how their approach aligns with culture responsive teaching, standard F, and any additional strategies. And then finally, after your peers have replied on your post, you're going to then reply back and say, what did you learn from the discussion? What feedback did you find most helpful? And how would you improve your approach in a real parent-teacher conference? So that's the discussion for the week. This is the assignment, and this is a video that supports you with understanding the assignment, which is creating a culturally responsive family communication plan. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me via email or office hours.